Percent of the time, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
It's not. It
Gets the people going.
You're now listening to Diagnonsense.
Look at all this damage!
With Justin Pendergrass and Kurt Honak.
You are a sad, strange little man.
Then we would just be idiots saying nonsense.
It's gonna mess me here.
Mine too. What are you laughing at, Isaac? What's so funny, bro?
Nothing.
So much.
You talking smack over there?
No.
Yeah.
Isaac, dude. No wearing hats backwards in the building.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's against my religion.
It's a good thing this is an audio podcast.
Yeah.
Examine the plank in your own eye before you look at my speck of sawdust.
Bro, the log's in there. I'm not trying to take the log out.
Okay.
It's still there. But that speck you got going, it's a pretty big speck.
Pretty big speck?
Yeah.
All right.
This isn't the soft open. We haven't even started yet.
No.
Kurt's not even ready.
Kurt's got his notebook.
What if we did start right now, though?
I'm ready.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Diagnonsense. I'm your host, Justin Pendergrass. I'm here with my co-host, Kurt Honak. How you doing, Kurt?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, today we're going to talk to Jay Dagenhart, our outreach coordinator here at my house, and we're going to ask him some questions just about, his upbringing, his life, and really what brought him here, and, his experience with mental health. How you doing, Jay? What's going on?
I'm doing well. Good to be here.
Yeah, man.
Housekeeping.
I'm not going to do housekeeping because I don't want Isaac to actually talk on this podcast. There's three of us here.
So we have a couple things going on here at my house. So today, which is not going to be relevant when this podcast comes out, but it's kind of like, you can do this later in the month. We're doing the community cleanup here with our staff members and volunteers. So I think when this podcast is releasing, you still might be able to get some trash bags from City Hall. So go grab some, go out, clean up some stuff around your neighborhood, your area. Yep. Everyone chipping in helps everything else look nice. Do be careful, though, when you're going out. We talked about this in the monthly update. Gloves, grabbers, and a thing to dispose of sharps with. That's the three big things. We're going to have them today. Remember, if you're picking up any needles or anything like that, safety first, and ideally you're not touching those even with gloves on, and then also make sure you have a container to dispose of those and take them to where they're supposed to be. Those get special disposal.
Hey, Kurt, give them a quick rundown on what they can use for those containers if they don't have a regular sharps.
Well, yeah, ideally you have like a sharps or a biohazard because those have to be processed as a biohazard. So, but usually if, for us, we just use really thick plastic, like something that's,
like a Gatorade bottle
won't be penetrated. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Gatorade bottle, I don't know if a Gatorade bottle would be, I would prefer something that's more like along the lines of something you would pick up from like a hardware store. That's like a bucket or something that, is if you're going to be doing a lot of cleanup, like a really thick.
But in a moment of necessity, you could grab a Gatorade bottle, throw them in there, and then replace it later.
I don't know.
You don't?
Density
okay.
on
I've put them in a
Gatorade
Gatorade bottle before.
Have you? Okay.
Have you, Jay?
Yeah. You can do that. You could use some people even use milk cartons.
Yeah.
Yep. Just something to get it to the next spot, and then you can
you can dispose of it however it needs to be after that, but putting it in a place where you're not going to have the least amount of poking and
I think
like a Gatorade bottle isn't ideal, but anything's better than nothing.
Right. I think the main idea is just to make sure that it's in a safe place so that it's not accessible to children or not going to be accidentally tampered with.
Yeah, of course. And you said that you have gloves here, don't you, for us to be able to use?
I do. I have. You need the thicker ones. What I was told was that none of the gloves. There's not fentanyl-proof gloves because the fentanyl can absorb through gloves. So if you're doing cleanup, I tell everybody for our staff, we should double glove, and then use the grabber. Like ideally, you always use the grabber, so that you're not making direct contact with anything.
And then anything like double masking.
I don't know. Just
not the same.
Let's not go there. With the grabber, just go down to Fred Meyer, get yourself a little T-Rex one, and then cleaning up used needles is a fun activity for the whole family. No.
And if you're not making the T-Rex noise, you're not actually allowed to use it.
Yes. Okay, podcast side of things. We just had part 2 of Alicia Buzz episode on Redemption go out a couple weeks ago. And then part 2 of my voice with one of our staff members just came out as well. And those are the two, kind of the first 2 big 2-part episodes we've done on any of the shows. So make sure you're tuning in for those. And then coming out, I believe it'll be next week after this episode's dropping, maybe within just a couple of days. We have maybe the biggest guest we've had on any of the podcasts coming on to the My House podcast. So make sure you're staying tuned for that. I believe the drop date for that episode is Wednesday the 25th. So Wednesday the 25th. Make sure you're tuning into My House podcast. Sorry, Jay, you're not our biggest guest.
No, that's okay.
You can be our
I'm the biggest guest.
Is it like a
to
secret?
date.
Yes.
To date.
We're keeping it kind of a secret. Yeah.
It is a secret.
It's a super
And
secret.
I know the secret.
I know who it is.
Yeah.
too.
Well,
Is it Bruce Wayne?
No.
no. We're not doing Batman again. Listen, I loved the Batman episode, but we're not doing I'm all Batman.
That was a filler episode. You know, it was like we were still right in the next one.
I don't know if that was a filler episode. I thought
it was fun.
I liked it.
It's still canon.
It's still canon. It's still canon.
It's just a filler episode.
Listen, there was some great character development that happened in that episode between the 3 of our characters. So, in this simulation of a podcast,
Oh my gosh. Hey Jay, so we want to talk to you about some stuff. Give me I know you, but I don't know that our listeners are going to know you very well. So I just want to start at the beginning. Tell us about where you grew up, your upbringing, your family, and then kind of like ease into the life that you're in now, and then we'll start asking you some questions just about the mental health things and about your job.
Sure, yeah. I grew up in rural Virginia and met my wife there, and we got married way back in 1994.
Jesus.
You guys probably weren't even born.
Negative.
None of
I
the
was
3 in the
not.
room were not born by
I
then.
was born, Jay.
No.
Yeah, 92, bro.
Oh, okay. Close, anyway.
Yeah.
I could be your dad. But anyway.
jeez.
So,
I
was
didn't know this was that kind of podcast.
got married, and we had 3 kids, and I actually felt called towards ministry back in 1999. So I quit a great paying job, and we sold our house that we had just built and moved to North Carolina, and went to college and seminary there and pastor churches there, and then kind of felt the draw towards missions in about 2009 and 10, and then came up here to Alaska on a mission trip actually in 2010, and we decided to sell everything we had and drag our 3 kids and our dog and our chinchilla and come to Alaska, and we started a church here. And I actually met Michelle Overstreet, our executive director, through a friend that we had in Virginia. Her cousin lived here in Wasilla. And I met her, and she goes, "Hey, you need to meet this lady, Michelle." And so my wife and I met Michelle when she was over at Burchell High School. And I joke with her, and I say, "You had me at hello." But she began to tell me about the vision, because my house was just sort of a vision at that time. In
Yeah, just a
2011.
conversation.
It was. And so I actually came on as one of the founding board members, and then I became our first full-time employee in 2013 as the outreach coordinator. And so this is my second stint. We actually moved back to Virginia for a little over 3 years, and I came back in 2020. So
It's good to have you back, though, Jay, because
good to be back.
I didn't know you when I knew you, but I didn't know you as well back when you were first working here. I think I met you in 2016. When did you leave? 2016?
17.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was shortly before you had left.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you very well, but coming back, and I'd always heard good things about the work that you did, and just your love for this community and your ability to just connect with those out there. So it's good to have you back. And really what we wanted to talk to you about is just that kind of like your upbringing and, the mental health stuff that, hit you in your life? I know that you're a Seahawks fan, so there's got to be a lot of mental health problems.
Actually, yeah, the Super Bowl loss, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm still
It was
scarred.
second down. All you had to do was run the ball.
Marshawn Lynch was the
Gosh.
best running back in the league, bar
Ridiculous.
none.
And
And you
passed the
had
ball.
a timeout. You had a timeout.
I curled up in a ball, like in the floor. And I
think-
called out to work for 3 weeks straight. I mean, it was bad.
It's going to be a rough season this year,
Yeah,
too.
it is. We got rid of Russell Wilson.
I didn't mean to take it this
No,
far.
it's
We're
okay.
going too far into
It's
the depths.
okay.
This is supposed to be a hopeful podcast.
Yeah, no. Having worked in this field for so long or whatever, I'm by no means a mental health specialist. You adapt. You deal with so many people that are struggling and so many people that are going through difficult times in their life, and you learn how to work with them and how to help them take steps when they can't see a step in front of them. But I've also learned through my own life things that have happened to me. I've lost a sister to suicide and several good friends and things like that. So you have to deal with your own mental health issues as well. And so it helps you to learn how to help others because you've walked those steps and you know how to deal with it every day.
Yeah, do you think that because of this job, you've actually built up a more empathy?
Oh, by far, yes. And when you yourself have walked through that and you know what a person's going through, it's not just telling someone you'll get through it. You know they'll get through it because you got through it. And so I think you definitely become more empathetic.
Yeah, so I know that you and Kurt have a little bit of more of a history than even yourself and I do. So what was it like when, Michelle started opening up the businesses and you started seeing like really the impact that was having on the young people? I know that Kurt, you used to run the cafe.
Yeah. And so Jay was doing his outreach stuff, and so we, I'd be like training different people, and we sometimes we'd do. I think we did a few booths together, just like, I'd be doing coffee or something, and then Jay would be there with his outreach stuff. And so we're doing a lot of, on when we got sent somewhere, it'd be like we got a lot of time to just kind of hang out and talk. So that was pretty cool. And it was cool just like because we were, building it. It was We've been on board since and watched this whole thing kind of unfold, and it's been really cool to have Jay. You need to have outreach for like when you're building an organization, like people, there's a lot of awareness that has to be built and networking and stuff, and Jay's always been really awesome about that.
Yeah, would you say that this organization has helped you grow as a person as well as, a father and a pastor?
Oh yeah, most definitely. It's helped me to kind of get out of, I joke that I have a bubble. That I don't like people near me sometimes or whatever. And so doing outreach and being out in the public all the time, it's helped me to sort of branch out of that and become more of a public person and doing a lot of public speaking and representing my house when we go out. I speak at a lot of meetings and coalitions and things like that. And so it's definitely helped me to branch out in that department. But I don't know whether Kurt remembers me, but I remember him from when he was running the coffee shop at Burchell High School back when he was in high school. So,
some of that was a little bit of a blur for me because I went through withdrawal, and that I've read that it can affect your memory, and like I remember like obviously like being at the coffee shop and serving like people, but like I was just going through so much stuff in that. So people were kind of like are in and out of there in terms of my memory. It's just like because I was meeting so many people and like doing a lot of different stuff. But it was a hard time for me when Jay, when we were first getting this started, like the first few years, even like up until me coming back, like I'm doing better than that time in that time. So
that's actually a perfect segue into my next question. The growth that you've had since coming to this organization, Jay. What would you say? Where would you say you were at before this organization, and like, as far as like feeling like you're living within a purpose and fulfilling that, even in your day job? Where would you say you were, and where would you say you feel you are now?
Well, I've been a pastor for over 20 years, and so part of that I felt was definitely my calling. But I told Michelle when I got to my house, it was a different type of ministry for me, even though we're not a religiously organization or anything like that. It gave me purpose in life that when I could see somebody out on the streets and share a business card with them and tell them about what we do, and they could actually come in here and you could watch their life change because somebody cared about them. And we had case managers that could pour into them and staff that could pour into them, and they could get the services that they need, the mental health, behavioral health, and substance abuse treatment that they needed. You could see their lives change, and that changes you, because you're knowing that what you do every day matters, and you have purpose. And I the older I get, I think it means more to me. I don't want to waste days. I want to know that every day that what you're doing matters, and it's significant.
Well, I can definitely see that what you're doing, Jay, does matter. As a case manager here, I do see the outcomes and the things, even if you just go and you speak at a school, and 2 years from now that person comes in, that, that was a success. That was somebody who's like, okay, hey, I know about this place, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to get the help that I need. So you mentioned early on in the podcast that you had lost your sister to suicide, and I don't want to go too deep into that because I don't want to rehash anything for you, but I'm wondering what the process of your healing looked like, how you found your peace in all of those, because I know that you've experienced a lot of loss in your life, but I do also know that you've experienced a lot of gain and happiness as well. But I want to touch on that loss for a second, and I just want to know, what was your process in finding the hope on the other side of the hardship?
That's a great question. I've lost both of my siblings. My brother was murdered about 20-some years ago by his ex-wife, and then my father had passed away, and then when my sister took her own life, that it's just something different with siblings, I think, as opposed to any other loss that I've had. For me, it was really tough because, being the pastor, everybody, even when I went home, everybody was waiting. It took me 24 hours to get home after her death, and everybody was waiting on me. When I got there was family at the house, and somehow they were looking to me to make it better, which, in hindsight, it's unfair to put somebody in that situation, but sure. I have to accept that as a pastor. So it was really tough for me. I had 24 hours to grieve with my wife before I got there. And so...
and then it was like game on.
Then it was game on. Yeah. We had to plan the funeral. I actually preached her funeral. And so it's been a process, really. There are times when I feel like I'm doing really well with it, and then there are other times when just a memory comes up or something from her, and you kind of... want to ball up in a ball, and
just have to take a moment to feel through it.
Yeah. But I think the hardest part is just that people expect you as a pastor to have it all together. Whenever I do a funeral, whenever doing anything like that, and you have to find ways to act like you're okay even when you're not. And it's not fair, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that that's actually a really interesting thing. Why do we expect our pastors to have it all together? I am also in ministry, and I travel a lot and do a lot of things, and I don't have it all together. And I actually tell them that from the stage.
Right.
Because I want people to know that I'm a human first. And as a pastor, it doesn't make me perfect. And as somebody who's out there preaching and doing those things, it's because I'm doing that because I am imperfect.
Sure.
And I'm hurt. And I'm broken, and I know that there's a way to heal and there's a way to get through it, and I cannot show you that without showing you the broken me. So it's interesting that you say, you know, even as a pastor, like you have to kind of like close yourself off in a sense. But I would like to see pastors open up to their congregations more and be vulnerable and broken to them. I think that that would be more powerful and more accepted than, I mean, right now, maybe not, because there's a lot of like, there's a lot of judgment within the church when it comes to like somebody who's struggling. But I feel like if a pastor had a place to open up, we would have less pastors falling into the temptation that, you know, because they'd be like, hey, I'm struggling, you know, like I'm really interested in my secretary, but I'm married, right? Like if a pastor came to you and said that, what would your first thing be?
Yeah, I do think it's unfair that, you know, for years and years and maybe generations, we've put pastors on these pedestals and we're not. Like you said, we're just broken people. I feel like that old saying, you know, I'm just one beggar telling another beggar where I got the bread, you know, when it comes to faith. And so even though it's not fair, it is one of those things. I found myself in the last probably 5 or 6 years being very vulnerable on social media. There's a lot of people, and, you know, in 20 years of ministry, you've befriended a lot of people all over the country and things like that. And so it's been very helpful, I think, to other people to see me being vulnerable about my sister's loss. And we had a young man who was like a son to me that took his own life. And I counseled him through that, and it wasn't enough to help him to stay. And so I've been very vocal through social media about that, about how I feel in that, and it seems to resonate.
Yeah. I guess I have another question. Sorry, Kurt. I just hop in whenever.
No, it's just interesting listening because, you know, we talked about, you know, purposeful pain and theology and like how that is very human. You know, that's a very human experience.
Yeah.
I just feel like, yeah, I'm listening, but I think that that's all valid and like, you know,
you're
those
just
are all
processing.
valid. Yeah, those are all valid experiences that people have, and I think that if you don't, you know, you know, that's to me that's the problem with a lot of approaches to mental health is like we have this symbolic like perfection, you know, and it's not. We're human beings, you know, and it's just, I just don't feel like it's attainable, you know.
Well, and I mean, even the conversation is that like, we can't be perfect, but then we expect our pastors to be.
Right.
And it blows my mind.
But we're not. We're not. I'm the least perfect person in this
I imagine
room
that
right
you
now.
struggle with a lot of the similar things that the lowest person in your congregation struggles with, and not like low as in like you know, like they're less than, low as in like they're beaten down and they're hurting.
Right.
And you know, I imagine that you're struggling with the exact same things. You have a mental health, you have a family and a job outside of this, you have bills, you have a car that's not working or breaking down all the time, you know. And then we shame people if their car's breaking down or something like that, and we're like, hey, you know, your car's not breaking down. Your car broke down because you're not praying enough. You're not right with God right now. And that's actually not true.
My favorite thing when somebody is sharing with me or they're breaking down or they're having an emotional moment, I don't try to fix it. All I tell them is it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
and
of course you feel that way.
Your
life is hard, you know.
You know, but in that moment, that seems to be helpful to say it's okay. It's okay to feel the way they're feeling. It's okay to be down. It's okay to struggle, and not have it all together.
I think that really ties in well to something that we were talking about a couple days ago, which was kind of the whole reason why we wanted to have this conversation today anyway, is you were talking about the myth of happiness in a conversation here in the building. And
yeah.
I mean, that right there is directly correlates to that. I think that idea of...
No, yeah, of course.
Yeah, we live in this society where you're supposed to be happy. You see it in slogans, you see it in commercials, you know. They even wrote a song about it, just be happy, you know. And I remember specifically with my sister, and she went through 4 divorces, and every time after she was ready to end the divorce, she would call me for some reason, and she would let me know, hey, this is where we're at, and I'm gonna leave. And she did. She left all 4 of her husbands, and I would ask her, like, what's going on, and her thing was always, I'm not happy. And my response every single time was, you're striving for something that's unattainable. Happiness is an emotion. Emotions are based on circumstances, and circumstances change. So if your everyday goal is to just be happy, you may be happy for 10 minutes, and then somebody comes in and tells you you're fat or ugly or stupid or you're not doing your job, or you get bad news, you get something to do with your health, your mate doesn't treat you the way you want, your friends don't like you, whatever it is, then you're not happy. And if you strive for peace, which peace can mean different things to different people. It can be a faith aspect. It could be something, just a state of mind. It could be tranquility. It could be whatever it is. Peace is attainable, but happiness is so fleeting. Happiness is strictly based on how your day's going, how your month is going, how your finances are going, your job. And that stuff changes. So I always encouraged her. She never could get it. And I encourage anybody that I talk with or counsel with, don't strive to be happy. Because if you're at peace, you're naturally going to have a happiness about you. And even in the midst of losing my brother and my sister and my dad and my friend Michael, I could still say I was at peace. I wasn't happy. I was struggling inside, but I had this thing inside of me that said it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it.
That's interesting. I like that you said that happiness is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the exact wording that you said. You said happiness is fleeting, but peace is consistent. Peace is something that you can attain because you can obtain consistently.
Because it's a state of mind.
Because it's a state of mind,
Yeah.
right?
Happiness is not.
When people walk up to you and they're like, hey, how are you doing? I'm on this new kick where I just tell them where I'm at.
Sure.
Right? If you ask me how I'm doing, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Today, I'm having a really hard time. I'm not going to just tell you I'm okay just to get you to leave me alone.
Right.
If you're asking me if I'm fine, you better be prepared to have the conversation, Yeah. And I think that that's just something that's kind of got lost along the way, right, Kurt?
Well, I think it reminds me of I saw an Alan Watts skit about he was talking about the pursuit of pleasure and how that can make people miserable, because one of the things that you want to do when you obtain pleasure is to obtain more pleasure.
Yeah.
And so you get into this feedback cycle of never ending feedback cycle of chasing that. And then he talks about how, in Buddhism, they talk about that can lead you into hell and you can be stuck in the hells. And that's what it reminds me of, because, peace. Yeah. When you talk about peace like that, that's pretty obtainable. And usually that is like a low hanging fruit of being okay with everything, I think, versus obtaining this ideal of happiness, which is kind of like heaven. That's how we envision heaven, right? Is I'm happy all the time. Life is pleasurable. There's no pain. There's no, I think that you have to be realistic too. I had to temper myself with psych drug withdrawal, because sometimes it took me months before I got certain sensations back, or it's I had to be realistic and go, okay, I can, if I try to obtain pleasure or if I want to use a certain drug, then that's going to send me straight back into that cycle. But I have to make a choice, which is, cause I think at some level, you're looking at existentialism, right? You're okay, well, how do I want to live my life? It's if happiness was in front of me and if it was immediate, sure. But then what is my life going to look like a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now? And so when you say peace, peace is like almost like that's an easy foundation. That's a good foundation for a house, right?
Yeah.
Is it built on peace? Because if you try to build it on happiness, I mean that can go away. It can be fleeting.
You end up
fast.
with multiple divorces.
That's what I think.
Right.
Yeah.
That's drug addiction too.
Sure.
I mean, you're going chasing that moment of happiness, but when you wake up in the morning, you're just right back where you started, or you're feeling worse than where you started, and so then you need to continue using in order to find that sense of happiness, and soon that's the only thing. You're so numbed that is the only thing that provides you any sort of pleasure, and that's how you spiral out of control.
Well, that's kind of what Alan Watts was saying, like that once you reach that level of pleasure, then the only thing, you're desensitized, and then the next level, and then which can be kind of the hell of drug addiction because your receptors get desensitized. You got biological stuff going on to where you just have to use the drug to feel normal, and then you're in the hells, right? That's literally that cycle playing out is.
And that can be a trap for people that have great wealth as well. A lot of very rich people are very miserable because they feel like there's nowhere to go from where they're at. They've just built up and up and up and up, but eventually they didn't build any sort of foundation on something where, like you said, like you have to build the foundation with peace and then work your way out from there. If you're just using not even a drug, but just using money or whatever it is to buy something, you can apply that to so many things.
Oh yeah. I mean, with things, you can get into houses and cars and clothing and music equipment, whatever it is, and that stuff never makes you really happy. You're happy in the moment when you get it, but then it's like the next thing comes down the pike, and you're like, oh, I got to have that. But I've seen people going through cancer treatment and going through heart disease and things like that are in their last stages, in their last moments, and they're totally at peace. And it makes no sense at all, to see a person who's facing death and be totally at peace and totally just okay with what's going on. And for me on the outside, sometimes I'm like, that I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I have that. But it's also encouraging to see that they have that and they're going through that. And it's not some facade, it's not some act. It's very even though I don't want to sound morbid, but it's an awesome thing to see when somebody is at their darkest, deepest spot and they're totally at peace with it.
Yeah.
Do you think that that peace can scare people sometimes into not wanting it?
Yeah, could be, because it sounds too good to be true. It's the old saying, if it's too good to be true, then it's too good to be true.
It's that, with me, like I'll catastrophize things in my mind, even if they're like little, as I'm like processing through them. And I told you this, I have to feel through stuff so I can let it go.
Right.
And sometimes I feel through it for too long and it actually cripples me. And it's like, getting back to that peaceful place is almost like terrifying because it's so unnatural and it doesn't feel like it's something that you belong in because you've never truly had it, right? When, let's say, for example, a lot of the clients that we work with, they grew up in this environment of constant turmoil and trauma and hardship. And then they start hearing about this, this peaceful way to live, and they don't want it, or they do, but they don't know how to get it, and they continuously sabotage their lives because it's like, I don't deserve peace.
Right.
And then peace becomes a fear. Like, does that make sense?
We talked about that a lot on the most two recent episodes of My Voice, where our guest was saying how bad they wanted to find recovery, but in the same moment, they knew that they weren't in a place where they were ever going to be able to achieve that, at least in that moment.
Yeah.
Like they needed, they were talking about how they needed basically to just be put somewhere where they wouldn't be able to slip back in there, because as bad as they wanted and knew that they needed to get clean and sober, they also knew that they weren't capable at that point of making that decision and fully sticking to that by themselves without a huge amount of support.
Well, so over the years, we've seen so many clients that self-sabotage. To me, it doesn't really make sense. But when you stop and think about it from their point of view, in their minds, they're kind of screw-ups. And they'll tell you that. I'm just a screw-up. I was born a screw-up and always going to be a screw-up. And so it's a lot easier to screw up than it is to say, I'm going to fix my life and things are going to be better. That's scary. Being a screw-up to them is easy sometimes, and it's easy to fall back into that. And it's a whole lot harder for us to come alongside them and say, no, you don't have to live like I hear Carly say that a lot. I don't have to live that way anymore.
Yeah.
And I get it. After doing this for so long, but it doesn't make sense to me. I think sometimes it would be so easy to just say my life's going to be better and I'm going to do this and life's going to be great. But it can be scary. It can be terrifying to think that I can live a different way.
Well, putting that into perspective, like you were saying, is, imagine having nothing your whole life and then be given the opportunity to have something. Now you have something to lose.
Right.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, that's what
you're saying. Is
if you are just resigned to failure, you have nothing to lose, exactly. But if you try to take responsibility for your well-being and you try to succeed or get clean, whatever it is, and you fail, then that is worse than just failing in the first place by not even trying.
But you're also
in
not
your mind.
just
Yes.
You're not failing yourself. And we've had clients say this. They say, I don't want to let you down. They'll tell the case manager, I don't want to let you down. And I always respond, it's not about me. This is about you. You're not, I'm going to be here. Justin's going to be here. Kurt's going to be here. We're all going to be here if and when you do fall, and we'll help you back up. But it's not about letting us down. But sometimes they struggle with that. They're like, I just want to make you proud. And it's kind of frustrating because it's like, it's not about making me proud. It's about you making your life better.
It's kind of interesting, though, when they do say those things. It's like they want to make you proud. They just met you.
Right.
They barely know you, and they're like, well, I don't want to let this person down. And sometimes that's all they have to latch onto for a moment in time.
Well,
right?
I think that's from a psychological standpoint, I think that's like learned helplessness and codependency. When you are dependent on other people and you've been neglected, then the only way you know how to like facilitate relationships is by giving too much a lot of the times, I think. And a lot of people that we work with come from places where they've not just been neglected, not everybody, but some people not just neglected by family, but, systemically, the system's failed on multiple levels, whether it's family or whatever the approach is, and I think that makes people like, they're looking for the tribal bonding, because for them that's they can become valuable the only way they know how to get value. Some people, for me, I think this was true too, in a lot of ways, is by putting themselves into a sacrificial role. And unfortunately. And so I definitely see that with people.
I've been learning a lot about that actually lately, the like becoming a servant when your calling isn't servitude. And not to get too churchy on you, but that is actually a redemptive gift, is servitude. And not everyone is called to be that. Some people are called to be, prophetic. Some people are called to be teachers. Some people are called to be givers, and when you're forced into this role, like a lot of our young people are, they're forced into these other giftings that aren't actually theirs. So for me, when I was growing up, I was put into this servant place, and I'm not that. That's not my redemptive gift. I can serve, and I'm happy to, but it's not where my foundation is. And I was forced into this role that my parents needed me to be. And then I became, very destructive in my life because I was walking a path that wasn't mine. It was something that was forced on me. And having to walk back and reset that, I call it my timeline, reset my timeline in my life so that I'm walking on a path that's actually what my purpose was very difficult. And it's terrifying to find that hope within the hardship as we're building through things, and I just find it so interesting as I'm working with these young people and they're discovering this on their own without me even having to say it. They're saying like my whole life I've been put into a box that's not my box. And, this is where I should be, over here. And they start developing these skills and these understandings as they're building their resiliency and they're finding their way as they're going and navigating the new world that they're in. Because when they come here, the first thing that I tell a lot of these kids is, when you're here, I'm going to treat you like an adult. And adults have to do hard things. Adults have to make hard decisions, and adults have to do things that, are very uncomfortable sometimes. But that's how you grow. And if you're not having a growth mindset, you're just going to stay in one spot and just live in that failure. So I really, I appreciate you coming by, Jay. I think that we should have more conversations in the future. I think that you, me, and Kurt could probably talk for another 2 days about some stuff. I do apologize, Kurt. You seem a little tired today, so I know
we all seem a little tired today.
So I know that
waking up.
you're a little quiet. I was trying to bring you in as much as I could.
No,
but
I thought the only thing that I wanted to say probably was that I love Jay was talking about, material wealth and like how capital, in when I took my peer support training, we talked about physical capital, mental capital, social capital. And, that reminds me of Paradise Lost from Milton, and that's, you can be in a palace of gold, but still be in hell. So that's what I think.
Yeah, strive for peace.
Yeah.
That's what we're all trying to attain. Thank you guys for tuning into Diagnonsense. I'm your host, Justin Pendergrass. I'm here with Kurt Honak. I'll talk to you guys next time.